Hello, everyone. It's a little bit of fun we're going to have. We're going to call this Let's Talk TT. Greg is going to fill you in with what our plans are.
Thanks, Chris. Our plans are simply to have occasional chat about this particular scale, this new scale that's come out. We want to try to encourage folk in it. We want to try to be as optimistic and positive as we can, but also as realistic as we can. Cover all things related to it, whether it's tiny layouts, little models, or huge big layouts, whatever is going on in the scale.
Yeah, because everyone keeps talking about TT120 about being this great scale for small spaces. Well, it also lends itself to make fantastic long landscapes with big, long 8-9 carriage trains. And that big scenery and those big trains, because of the scale, they can be in something that's a good size, 12-foot, 14-foot exhibition size layout and look excellent and dramatic. Whereas even the big, apart from Let's Make Tracks, even the big layouts in at a show in 00, they're still a little bit squished, they're still a little bit foreshortened, they're still a little bit kind of crammed in. Whereas if you have a big layout in TT120 at a show, a proper one, I think it will look fantastic. And it's something hopefully I'll get involved with a little bit later in the year. But you know what it's like. Trying to find time for this stuff is always a bit tricky.
It was something at the start, I got to be honest, my thoughts went to, oh, great, I can get a really good little Inglenook style shunting thing going with this TT when I heard about it.
Yeah.
More recently, that aspect of, yes, but just think how good a large layout would look has come to the fore in my thinking more, which wasn't there initially. And so it is versatile. It can do...
Absolutely. And I know people say, oh, but there isn't enough product out there to help fill a space like that. Well, if you actually look at a lot of the N-Gage stuff, which I know there's going to be people who are fans of N-Gage, and for so much of the British N-Gage stuff at 148, it's a little bit out of its own scale anyway. I don't think it's actually, personally, when you look at the coal and the back grasses, I think that they don't really fit very well with N-Gage. I think they're a little bit oversized. And so there's a lot of N-Gage products out there which look fantastic in TT, just because it just seems to be closer to what it really should be. But
I remember early on, I was much younger, that aspect of a kind of railway in the landscape. There was a layout that was featured in Railway Modeler called Chee Tor, and it just blew me away. It was in terms of the actual layout design, there was almost nothing to it. There was a main line, I think a few sidings, but it was just sweeping through the scenery, and it was incredible. Yeah. And I think that end for myself wasn't an appeal, but that a little bit more manageable at TT size, and I think there's potential there.
I'm a fan of a channel called Mouldy Raspberry.
Okay.
And he does predominantly running videos. I'm pretty sure that his 00 stuff is DC only, and he puts real live steam sound on top.
Yeah.
And the way he edits them, the way that he shoots them, are fantastic. And it's a really small layout, but it looks huge just the way he photographs it and videos it. You should check it out. Mouldy Raspberry. If you've got a big pile of ironing, there's nothing more pleasant than to stick your iPad up on the side and have Mouldy Raspberry stuff going past, because they're just superb. But it's inspired me to plan my own Yorkshire Dales big layout with lots of landscape and not much track, sort of based a little bit on the North Yorkshire Moors Railway kind of type thing, where it used to be 2 tracks and now most of it's only single track, that kind of thing. The romanticism of it, that kind of, it sweeps me along. I don't know why.
Well, what got you into TT? Obviously, there was an announcement Hornby, but were you looking for an ideal scale? Were you looking for a return to the model, to the hobby? What was it that drew you in?
Simon Kohler, believe it or not,
And no good sell product.
I know he's a Marmite type chap for some people, but I don't have a problem with him at all. So so really, I guess, just a quick rewind. My model railway life. Okay, so it starts in. So I'm 55 years of age. So I'm born in 1968. So 1973, I'm allowed to help my dad with his O gauge, but it's tin O gauge, and some of it's clockwork, some of it's battery. Then not long after that, I remember him bemoaning this thing called TT and Y. You couldn't get hold of it because he thought it was a perfect scale. But we ended up building I suppose it's the equivalent then of what a track mat roundy is for Hornby in 00. I loved it. I also got handed down a whole bunch of American HO stock from my cousins. I've got some family in America, and it's the big American stuff with all the streamlining and a big light lamp at the front. Obviously, because they're HO, slightly smaller bodies than the 00 stuff, so they still looked fine, and I didn't care because they had lights. And the rest of my Hornby DC stuff didn't have lights, but this American HO stuff was fantastic, buzzing around. But this roundy with my dad made a cracking little tunnel, station, pond, bridge, one little siding and a shed and water tower, the sort of thing. And he did a great job on it. But the only space where it could get put away in the house was under my parents' double bed, and it would have been pulled out and put on top of the bed, and we'd have a little play. Then it'd get put away again. And of course, it's not ideal. It's not something that I could easily access. Yeah. Mum wasn't particularly impressed by the whole thing. And then he eventually built me a good size 00 in my bedroom, and it was a long one wall, about 8 foot long, 1.5 wide, but it had a pull-up flap that had a loop on it. And that was great. That was good. And then I got into, there was a Rowan Model Society at my school. They would take us to shows, and we would do a lot of show work, and I really enjoyed doing the show stuff. I'm talking. I'd actually rewind a bit. I lost my parents. Okay. Lost my parents. So that kind of railway stuff stopped. But then it was reborn again when I went to secondary school when I was about 12, because they had this Model Railway Society, and I would go to these shows, and it was fantastic. Obviously, missed my dad doing this sort of thing, but that's life. But that was all I could really. That was my only access to it. And then, of course, I became a teenager. Then I went to college, and then chasing girls, wasting all your money on cars and motorbikes, all those sort of things. And it wasn't until, I guess, it was years later, when my son was 4 years of age, that I then said, I've got to get him a train. And for one Christmas, we bought him a Pendolino DCC with the little single DCC controller. Is it the Elite? What's the small one called? But anyway, and that was fun. Buzzing around again. We built it on a board that was probably something about 4 foot by 5 foot or 6 foot, and it was on a track mat, and he liked going as fast as he possibly could with the lights on, and the room lights off, and that was fun. But that was all we could really do with it, and it stuck out from his bed. So we either had the bed pulled away and books would fall down, or the Hoover would knock it, and it was all just a little bit. And eventually he got fed up with it, and we packed it all up and put it in the loft. Okay, so that would be now about 12, 13 years ago. So we're looking at around about 2010. Okay, and then that's it again. Another hiatus from the hobby, and last Christmas, or Christmas before last, my wife and daughter had gone off to London to see family, and my son and I were watching. We were watching something that he wanted to watch on yesterday. I think it was Bangers and Cash or something like that. And after it came Model World, the Horman Model World, and Simon Pott comes on the screen, big grin on his face, starts talking about these TT120 locos, starts talking about how it's a really, getting on, showing his passion about the scale and the reasons for it, and then starts talking about HM7000, and that pricked my ears up, thinking, what, a free app on a platform that my son would quite happily access.
Yeah.
Winner. And so, and Jimmy said, Dad, do you think we'll ever have a railway set, a proper railway built before I go off to uni? So I thought, well, that's a challenge. And so I said, right, let's go up the loft. Went up in the loft, found all my dad's stuff, found all my stuff. It's all still boxed. Been carrying it around for 40 years. There, so many house moves.
Yeah.
And his pendulum, sold a lot on eBay. Surprised about how much some of it went for. We had a nice little war chest to start. So all these people would turn around and say, I've invested so much. Well, fine, okay, but I had this investment of all this old stuff, but I wasn't using it. So I sold it, and we ordered the Flying Scotsman, the Scotsman set, but also a Flying Scotsman and Mallard, thinking that's where we'll start and that's all we'll do.
Yeah.
So that's what got me into it. I will then, now it's your turn, then I'll tell you how I got into YouTube.
Yeah, well, for me, it was a classic train set at Christmas when I was a kid. And still remember it being set up on the kitchen table, and round it was an old Triang Hornby Ginty. There was I can still remember the slippers box. The slippers were quickly discarded. 2 holes cut out at the end of the box, turned upside down. That was my tunnel. And so that was me starting. I enjoyed it enough. My dad obviously realized I think I was getting into it, and so he took off. There was a strange cupboard we had off one of the spare rooms that had, we opened this full-size door, and there was just shelves, a very narrow cupboard. So he took the door off that cupboard and laid horizontally, and that was my first board, a permanent layout. I expected that poor Ginty to do things that, it went up at about a 30-degree angle, along and then down again. I would force it round any kind of radius I decided it would manage, and it
at full speed.
Of course, yes. Low speed was. Now I love low speed. At that point, low speed was utterly boring. So yeah, that interest was always there. And then we moved about a wee bit, but on holiday one time, we were staying in a self-catering flat off another house, and the chap whose house we were staying in was retired, but had been in his region a top Hornby retailer, particularly specializing in 01. And I'd heard of 01, but not much about it, but I was just blown away by what it could do. I'd also heard negatives that it wasn't that reliable, but I basically, we were going further on our holiday, and my parents said, if you have enough money left at the end, you can buy some stuff on the way back, thinking I'd have spent it all my holiday and I wouldn't have any left. I spent not a single penny on holiday, so I could buy as much of his old 01 stuff as possible. So that kind of got me into I think particularly the idea of that control. And I think that to me is some of the appeal of HM7000 as well, that getting control of the locals really well. And obviously what can be done now is way in excess of that. But it was on hiatus. That was my childhood. I kept it up fairly well through secondary school, went away to uni and so on. That was not possible. And used the excuse of the kids being born to it's for the children, dear. Got them a few bits and pieces as I went on, and so there was a fairly short hiatus from kind of end of school to then settling down and the kids coming along. And they've been old enough to make something of it. But that was 00. So there's still a 00 8x4 or slightly more, 8 by maybe 4'6". That's suspended from our garage ceiling.
Yeah.
Which is the youngest's layout now. But he really uses it as it's a setting for his soldiers and tanks and stuff. That right. Train will occasionally spin round, but that's what it's for. So when TT came out, I had the excuse, I can build a nice, neat little layout, and it'll sit on a shelf, and that was my domain again to take back some of my models from the kids, I suppose. So that's how I got back into it. There you are, back.
Cool. Right. So leading quickly on, because I know people who are watching this are going to go, when are they going to talk about some relevant stuff? And we will talk about some relevant stuff in a very short
time. We have that plan. We assure you.
So YouTube. Okay, right. So whilst we ordered this set and these two locos, obviously there was a little bit of a delay because the first sets were all snapped up. Irrelevant of what somebody else says, they did all sell, and we, the rest of us, all had to wait for the next delivery from China or from Far East, where they come from. And so whilst doing that, I started watching YouTube channels, and there was very little content about TT120. There was a few people, like Modeloco was talking about the scale and showing the dinky toy 1/120 versions, and then there's other people sort of touching on it, but not really kind of. I think some of them managed to get their hands on the set before the rest of us did, and I know there was a lot of them complaining about. There was some stuff on YouTube that I thought was a little bit odd, the way people dive deep into complaining about the track and various components, and think, well, they're actually really investigating it. And part of my enjoyment of whether it's model railways or fast electric model boats or radio controlled cars is that you're fixing stuff, you're problem solving stuff, and there's almost hardly anything. Well, pretty much everything should run straight out of the box, but there's always tweaks to be had. There's always things to do, and obviously very quickly people found that there was a little issue with that track, and it just needs a little tweak, and all of a sudden everything works fine. And they've had similar issues with the bogies and so on and so forth. But anyway, I digress. We were starved for content because we didn't have these things we'd ordered. We were impatient. Son and I, we start watching YouTube videos. We start seeing other people, bump into some positive people like Jenny Kirk, and then bumped into them. Then we saw that. I said, look, there's Doncaster have a model railway show in February, and we were still waiting for the stuff to go. So let's go and have a look anyway. I know there'll be hardly anything there, and I think the only thing about TT120 that was was a very small section from West Hill Wagon Works. We have to say, are very progressive when it comes to TT120 content, and they've got a fantastic range now, and it's ever expanding. And their quality, their 3D printing quality is top notch. Excuse me. But going around there again, bumped into Jenny Kirk, bumped into Craig from Iron Horse Railways, had a good chit chat with them. They're perfectly amenable and nice and pleasant, and were interested in what people had to say, the questions they had. And we got home from it. Well, no, we hadn't even got home. We were having a burger and a cup of tea in the cafe there. And Jimmy said, "We could do some of this, Dad." And I said, "Well, do some of what?" He said, "Well, a bit of YouTubing. Why not? When the thing turns up, let's do some YouTube." And I was thinking, oh, it's not really for me, but if it interests him and it keeps him engaged in it, then maybe this is something that I should do if it doesn't take up too much effort. And lo and behold, before very long, I really got into doing this YouTube stuff, and it's not because of, you know, the money side of things. And everyone says, "Oh," but it is really small. But it's very, very well, it's very welcome. And what the thing that surprised me was meeting people like yourself and the others on the forums and via YouTube, and finding out that there is a community. It might be a bit of a digital community, but then as soon as you go to a show, invariably most shows will have a bit of a YouTube meetup, and you've got a gang of people meeting up at these shows, just say hello to each other, and walk around the show and say hello to people. I mean, like I was at Doncaster this year. Lots of people come up to say hello. Lots of my subscribers come up to say hello, have a good chat. You know, it was fantastic. It's you know, it kind of, when we've had these years, particularly with COVID, where we weren't getting out, we weren't talking to each other, I found it really refreshing, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think it's not that some of really, for myself, it was also some of that negativity at the start. It was before they'd announced HM7000. They announced TT. Obviously, Pico and Fairness had announced their stuff first, and Hormick along with it obviously have the bigger brand awareness, and there just seemed to be a wave of unnecessary negativity, and it was partly just annoyance, to be quite honest. Right, I'm going to have my say here, and so I stuck a camera in front of a little 00 Inglenook shunting puzzle I've got. I recorded it going, and then a voiceover saying, "Look, ease off. They're trying to be new. They're trying to grow the hobby here. As a business, they've got to do that anyway, but also it's no bad thing. There's reasons why they've taken the decisions they have. Let's see how it goes." Really, that was all the intent it was. No thought particularly of it going anywhere beyond that. And to my surprise, as much as anyone else's, the views kept coming in. And I kept to my family saying, "You never guess how many views there are now. There's 100, you know, there's 1,000. They were looking at me as if I'd gone mad. And then in the Q&A that followed the original announcement, Simon Kohler, again, Simon, give him his credit, he put out, "Look, any questions, here's my email address, ask me anything you like." I thought, there's no way that, you know, the face of Hornby is actually going to be able to respond to the flood of emails that'll come in. There was an email, so I emailed off a few questions. There was an email back, a very polite, excellent, useful email within about 8 or 9 hours. And a little bit back and forth from there, and I'm going to have a go. So I don't suppose you'd be willing to come on to do an interview. And he said, "Yeah, of course, no bother. We'll arrange that."
He answered my emails, but I never had the kahunas to actually ask him for a video interview, because at that point I had I don't know, 300 subs. I thought, he's not going to talk to me. And then you appear with an interview. I think you had about 50 subs at that point or something.
No, I was utterly shocked. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I've just ticked over the 500 now, and I'm very thankful to all 505 who subscribed. But I'm still in somewhat shock that Simon Kohler went on to a channel that, I mean, he had no way of knowing if I was someone out to stitch him up or anything like that. And he came on in good faith and treated it like that. And so that's how I ended up back in the hobby, back in TT, and with such as this is, it's a side of a side of a side, but I enjoy doing it when I get the chance.
Absolutely. And you know, there was that weird wave at the beginning that was very odd. I mean, I know I still don't understand his business decision, because I know people have, and there's been a recent video, and we're not going to mention his name because we're not haters. We're just discussing differences of opinion. But the people saying that you know, Hellion was bullied out of the scale, and I think that they saw the amount of backlash there was from, I think, a minority of 00 fans, because it's only from the 00 community. The N-Gage aren't remotely bothered. They're quite happy with their lives. So are the O-Gage guys. It just seems to be predominantly the 00 guys, and not all of them, just a minority, who have just gone on social media and said this is the devil's spawn or something of that ilk. And if Hellion, what is it? It's now coming up to 2 years ago when they said that they were going to do that. Was it the 31 or the 37?
It would be out by now. 31, I think it was.
Yeah, well, there would have been. I bet you they'd have got it out before Hornby.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the way that things are going with Hornby at the moment, and that's not a bad thing. They've been so busy selling and reproducing the stuff that's been selling well that things have shuffled back because they've been surprised by how positive the take-up of TT 120 has been, that those things they mentioned are miles down the road. And who's to say that the new chap Martin doesn't turn around and say, "Hang on a second, look, we've got to focus on these things." Those locos that were just put down as a little list of these are some of the locos that we're thinking of doing, they might not come out until 2027. By which point, if the Hellion had brought that 31 out, they would have flown off the shelves like hotcakes. And even now, they've had so many people contact them saying, "We really wish you'd come back. We really wish you'd do this. We would happily spend our money on your product." They've just said, "Yeah."
The only ones I can understand being slightly miffed are the TT3 people, who'd longed for their scale to get big, and Hornby comes so close to doing it and then not. And I can be just human nature being what it is. You'd be beyond that. You'd be a shrug of the shoulders. No, well, I mean, they've been doing this anyway, so you just carry on doing it. Model railways to me is a superb hobby. It's got lots of opportunities. It's very relaxing. It gets my mind off other stuff for a short time in a week, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
And in a way, I don't care what scale anybody does. At this show in Glasgow there, we went around to see every scale, and they were all fantastic.
Yeah.
There were N's, there were O's, there was EM, there was OO, there was HO, there was Garden, and they were brilliant. And I didn't really imagine stopping to a guy and go, "Why are you modelling in this scale?" It'd be nonsensical to me. I just don't understand it.
The behaviour seems to me a little bit defensive, but I don't understand why. When in the UK, 00 is so secure, it's so big. There's so many companies doing fantastic stuff in 00. You have such. You can if you've got deep pockets, you can. If you're a rich person, you can buy the latest thing with everything on it for top prices. If you've got more of a normal person's budget, then you can buy. The forums are selling stuff secondhand. You can go to the shows and buy stuff third hand, and there's all the various marketplaces and things online, such as eBay or whatever. There's a huge support when it comes to the second and third. Go to your local club, and there'll be people selling stuff, in 00.
Yeah. I think bring it back to then. There is. And one of the exciting things I think it really drew me definitely decide I'm going to try this TT was the overlap with the HM7000. I think that is there's this new scale, there's this new tooling, and there's this new, somewhat exotic sounding control system, whereby it bypasses the mystique of DCC, which is always quite overly geeky.
It's absolutely superb. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I know that there are some people who say, "Well, you can't consist yet," but they're working on that. And I know there are people saying, "Well, you can't automate." I believe they're working on that as well. I mean, there's a lot. I think there's a lot more to come. None of us have got crystal balls. We don't know when that's going to come. We don't know what's happening with it. But I do know that when I went to Doncaster, I was guesting on the market deeping, and I had kids using my iPad to control, under my instruction, to control locos on that track, and some grown-ups too. And some of the guys at Market Deeping who are looking at this NCB cab and are going, and you have to remember what the numbers for all the points were. I have to remember all these numbers for the locos. And it's just looking number. And thinking, oh, what? And they look at mine, you can swipe along. Here's a picture of the Mallard. Here's a picture of my Ice 3. There's all the 08s. What? It's a picture. Yeah, click on the picture. There's a big picture. Oh, there's a slidey bar. It's so easy and so simple to operate, so simple to use. You don't have to remember this or remember that. And I don't know, it's just I found it intuitive, and so did the kids who come and played with it as well. And I think one of the guys at Market Deeping was saying that what they were considering doing, because they had some issues with their locos running, or they had some issues with their control system. And I think what they're looking at doing is they're going to get a couple of locos, put some HM7000 chips in, download the app onto a phone, so that next time if they do have an issue at a show,
backup,
they can stick a couple of locos on, pass them around.
That's a really good. Yeah, I think I was at the Bachmann stand, and they've obviously just announced their next generation of control, which is this Kinesis stuff, and it looks a very capable control system. I'm not up to date enough on the whole NC Power Cap stuff to know how it compares, but it is very much an incremental improvement, I would say, over what's there before, if improvement at all, compared to HM7000 just swing entirely different. There's an app for theirs as well, in fairness, that works, but it works through the computer that must also be tied up to everything else. And the computer's not there, the app doesn't work, as I can understand it at least. So
yeah,
the conversation directly from your phone or your tablet to the loco, and the mesh networks, that they're all talking to each other, so that you don't end up with a local strand without signal. I think that's very well thought out. So it has to improve. There has to be areas still to come on. Consisting is an obvious one, but it's a Gen 1 product just now. You have to accept that. A bit as with TT. It's all its first iterations, and it will improve.
Something that I think that really makes HM7000 I think a real winner is when it's combined with Hornby's power.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you tried that yet? Have you?
No, I haven't. The only I've got the HM7000 chip in a 00 Bachmann 08, and even that I had to actually cut away some of the chassis block to fit the 8-pin chip into it with the speakers. I can't. It seems ridiculous on that side. I can't think where the power bank would go automatically. I'm sure I completely override the cab space, but in 00 it's much more noticeable than it is in the TT. So I haven't done that yet. And then it's the Nighthawk I've got, which, having seen your tutorial now, the cogs are turning, but I haven't been brave enough to try it yet.
Give it a go. But for me, I'll admit this, I nearly quit TT120 because of 1000. Because when I first got it, it was easy enough to put the chips in. It was easy enough to rig up the speaker. Easy enough to set up to get everything loaded on the program on the app. But I was getting so frustrated with the locos running around for 2 minutes, then stopping, and then as soon as they went over a piece of dirt or something, they would just cut out, and I'd lose connectivity, and it just seemed to be this going on and on and on. And then I got really quite. I don't normally get wound up. I was getting wound up on the forums by being told that obviously I hadn't cleaned my track. It's a brand new track that I had cleaned, brand new products, and they're running perfectly DC. But I'm having these issues with, and then eventually I got to the bottom of it all. It wasn't about whether or not my track was. Okay, you've got to have clean track, right?
Yeah, you do.
it doesn't have to be laboratory clean all the time. It needs to be a good level of cleanliness. But even a good level of cleanliness, and it shouldn't be an issue when you've got all these axles with all these pickups. But then someone told me that, and again, it's on the forum, on the Hornby forum, which I think is a great forum. Someone said, but even if one pickup has a slight fluctuation in the voltage, the chip safety systems just turn everything off. It's a bit like a trip with a bad earth at home. Right, so that makes sense. That's why you go over the plastic frog and it cuts out. You do this, it cuts out. And I thought, well, let's have a go with the power bank. Let's see if that helps us smooth out those bumps, those issues. And now, since then, people have also realised that the spacing on wheels can be improved, particularly if you're going to use a pico track. You need to make sure all your spacing is correct, because that can have a fluctuation in if you have one set of wheels that's too short and not contacting as much. But so there's a whole bunch of things you can do. But I took the back off of Blink Bonnie, plugged a power bank in, and it completely fooled the chip. The chip decided there's no problem with all this voltage, everything's fine, and I had hours and hours of fun. And up until that point, I'd had 3 months of getting no more than a couple of minutes before having to turn everything off and on again, and it was getting really, really dull. And so I'm hoping now. There's lots of people who now. I mean, I did my little tutorial of how you could do. You could replace the coal and put a tidy power bank in, and I think there is actually quite an easy way of doing it in the cab of an 08. You don't have to go down the very expensive route. You could do this yourself once that 6-pin decoder comes out, and I'm looking forward to that. Or you can use people who have got some exceptional skills like Richard from This Way Works, who will put the whole lot in there for you. Now, what I'm hoping for is that I'm hoping that someone at Hornby looks up from their computer. I'm talking about the designers here, and says, right, okay, look at these guys. Look at what these guys are talking about. Now, it must be difficult because there's a ton of it out there, but there's not as much as there is on the 00 forums. There isn't that many. Mm-hmm. I think that's my last count. There's about 10 TT only YouTubers, and we're all talking about it. So I'm hoping, and people are talking to Hornby when they go to the shows. So I'm just hoping someone is listening and going, right, okay, you know what, the HM 7000 is a game changer, but if we can make sure we can get a power bank to fit in, it's going to be a world beater.
Yeah, I think absolutely. To me, the designs from now on must have, from the ground up, where's the power bank going to go? The same as where's the DCC chip going to go? Where's the speaker going to go? These things are now things that designers have to work around, and it is extra. But it'd be insane to me to bring stuff out now. Oh well, now we couldn't fit in the. No, there'd be some tiny locus where that might be the case. But
bear in mind that every loco I've opened up forever has had a great big chunk of cheap white cast metal. Right, tons of it, right, and there is loads of space in all of these if they designed it in.
Yeah, I think that. And there's no reason it shouldn't be. So I'm hugely looking forward to getting the 08, getting the 6-pin, getting the power bank, putting it in there, and shunting away to my heart's content. That will be a happy moment. And I've really got quite into it in a rather sad way as far as my children are concerned. The shunting puzzles, I find them quite relaxing, and it stimulates the brain, but in any way that gives you any grief. So, yeah. I'm aware of time is certainly pressing on, but we were going to have a wee chat a little bit just about our crystal ball. What are you excited about just now?
I'm excited by the HSTs. We've just heard this evening, just before we started videoing this, we just heard that they're live on the Hornby website. Of course, I've got to ring them in the morning and say, now I know that my payment is going to fail because that's an old card that was chewed by the dog. So can I pay for the new one so that I try and stay near the front of the queue so I don't get... It shouldn't matter that, because I'm not going to rush into doing a review of it. What I want to do this time with the HST is I want to open it up, see where the space is, fit a power bank, and have that all in one review. So that's the plan for that. What I'm really excited about is the original HST, the blue and yellow, because that's the one I had that was the last train pack that my dad bought me back in 77, 78, something like that. And I just thought it blew my mind. It was out of this world. And I thought that was fantastic. Something but talking about that set was a power car, dummy car, and two coaches. And I do wonder why TT120 haven't done that with this, because we haven't got the coaches coming out yet. I don't know when the coaches are coming. Hopefully they'll be soon. But there's going to be a lot of people with HSTs in the next few weeks.
Maroon in between them,
with Mark ones between them or something.
Yeah. And there'll be a few folk who will be struggling to resist the temptation to re-livery somehow to make it look a little bit better. But I think I picked up one of the HSTs there at the show, and the weight of the power car was phenomenal. I'm really interested to see, was my hand correct? Because you're kind of gauging things roughly, but to me it seemed really meaty, and it felt this is quality. So I am excited by that. But as I say, I hope it's not at the expense of, we couldn't fit in the power bank again, sort of thing. So,
well, I think I've got a feeling that well, we don't know. We won't know till we've opened it up. But if there's a great big chunk of metal in, it's okay. I've got a Dremel. It's not an issue. I'll cut it out and I'll fit the power bank in. But something that I'm intrigued about is what happens with this these two decoders. Now, I saw the first time I saw a HST operating in 1 to 120 scale was at Getz with the Key Model Worlds Hornby magazine stand, and I had and it looked fantastic. And it was great to hear the sound of one go past and then the rear car go past and hear the engine sound in that as well. But they were controlling that via DCC. They weren't using the HM7000 app. Right. So they could consist, even though one of them wasn't a power car. So they were consisting so that they could have, the two chips either end were being read by one, what's the word, assigned to one number, so that they can control the lights that way. Whereas with the HM7000, you can't do that unless there's going to be coming as well a new update where we are allowed to do that. It does seem, I don't know. My ICE 3 is an 8-unit low train, and it has one in the middle. It has one drive car with the decoder, the HM7000 decoder in it, and because the connectors between them are all pins and sockets, you've got lights either end, which obviously change depending on which direction it's going. But with the Hornby one, we've got to buy two, and I'm intrigued to see how that works. Sorry, my wife is just sending me a message saying, "Is Ted with you?" I'm just giving her a thumbs up. Ted's our white terrier. It's sat down here. you want to come and say hello? Come on.
But I've Ted on now. You can't not. It'll become a TED talk if you put him on. You see,
There he is.
There he is. Excellent.
What do you think? So what's going on here? Who's that? Is that Greg? There he is.
Really not interested.
He's thinking, I'm by my radiator. Why can't I sit back? Hey? All right, you can sit down here.
Very good. Well, I think that gives us an excellent ending point. Ted can be the mascot for you from now on. You can come on to give us me ending comments.
Now, the future, I think what we're going to try and do is both you and I have been speaking to people in the industry who have said that they would be okay for an interview. So I think if anybody watching this has got this far so far, well done.
Well, yes, exactly.
Two men just bibbling on. We're hopefully, aren't we? We're hopefully going to try and have a conversation with a few people. There's a few interesting people that want to come on and have a conversation. We won't say who's who because we haven't got anything 100% committed yet. And we'll possibly also talk to some other YouTubers as well. We were thinking, seeing as you're Scottish, I'm English, maybe we can try and find an Irishman and a Welshman.
Yeah, I think so. I think that the idea is to be able to try and bring in folk who are working, who are developing at the macro level, at whatever level it might be. There's people out there, the cottage industry working with TT. There's obviously your Hornbys, your Picos, and everyone in between. And it'd be great to have somewhere that was that natural landing spot for people to come and say, okay, this is what we're doing now, and have an opportunity to interact with those who are keen on the scale, who are not here to bash, but here to learn and get excited coming out.
Like saying that, we do have a few people who are in our crosshairs. We want to try and get Richard from New Junction on and browbeat him into telling us that one day a Curacao might make a TTT logo.
I think that hint has been dropped a few.
Possible wishful thinking, I know.
I think that I would be astonished if other manufacturers aren't at least going, maybe. They must be watching this space. They must be.
Yeah, because, I mean, there are plenty of people out there who have bought everything that Hornby has done in TT1. Okay, I have, and I've got pretty much everything on pre-order.
Yeah.
Now, because I can do that. I'm lucky enough to do that, or I've had the opportunity to do that. But I'm not the only one. You know, there are other YouTubers out there doing TT120 who have got 15 Pacifics, you know, and chop some of them up and turn them into pannier tanks and other fantastic things. Absolutely. You know, so this is not. I don't know that there is a market. There are people buying this stuff, and Hornby know that.
Yes,
and I think I'm not trying to use a crystal ball, but there was all that uproar last year from people who have no understanding of how industry works about Hornby's when Hornby's figures were posted.
Yeah,
and they were banging on about the loss and they're in trouble and they're going to collapse. And you go, well, yeah, mate, but that's because you have no clue what you're talking about. That's not actually how business works. And when we come this time round, when it comes to the end of year figures, we'll have the start of a real barometer to see how things are developing.
Yeah. I
don't think one moment that they would have paid off their deficit in a year. It's impossible. Okay. But I bet you they've done a big damage to it, and everything's going in the right direction. And as you said, as someone had mentioned, that there's 6% of people are new adopters of this scale.
New to the hobby completely, not just adopters of the scale.
Yeah.
6% new to the hobby. If that poll is at all reflective of the wider community, then that is growth in a way that hasn't happened that I'm aware of for 30 years. And that's not insignificant at all.
If I heard facts like that, or I think it's more than that, actually, I would, if I was a canny businessman who maybe run a sports outlet, would go, that's actually doing really well. That's better than I was thinking it would do. I might invest in that. Or if I was a sort of, never worked anywhere YouTuber who I didn't have a clue what they were talking about, then maybe I wouldn't invest in Hornby. But anyway,
who can tell?
Who can tell? Let's leave the elephant out of the room. Right. So, Mac, this has been fantastic. Hopefully, this is not too boring for people. A couple of things I'd like to say to everyone out there. Please like and subscribe both our channels. All right. If you're new to this, the subscription is free. Okay. And you can cancel it anytime you want. Or if you to subscribe to us, if you think that we're helpful for the whole content, and then when you have that ringing that bell thing, you can choose the option not to be annoyed by us all the time. But if you if you subscribe to us, then you'll more easily find us in your subscription feed. You don't actually have to have that bell shoving us in your face. You can choose different options. Below there'll be links to both our channels. Greg, you take care. Thanks for all the help with this video, and I'm looking forward to doing many more.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe no one else is.
No, thanks. I think we've talked about this for a while. It's good to get going, and it'll be a sporadic feature, but hopefully not irregular entirely at the same time. So we'll see.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching, everyone.